Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the Yes Mujer Build It podcast. Wendy here, and I just got back from a 3-day silent retreat. Yes, even Wendy, who talks for a living, got to spend quiet time in my thoughts in what's going on underneath the surface, which was so valuable. So today's podcast is on the value of stillness, the value of silence, and why you need it in your life. In fact, we need it more than we think, for sure. Let me tell you my experience with silent retreats. This was the third one I've been to. I went to one in my 20s. And then I went to one in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. And it was through Agape International, Reverend Michael Beckwith. Shout out to Reverend Michael. He's my Rev. And at that silent retreat, they had music. It was a little different. You could have your phone, even though you weren't supposed to use it. This silent retreat that I just came back from, they asked us to leave our phone and our laptops in the car. So all electronics were left in the car. I'm going to explain first the difference between this retreat in terms of what I experienced and what opened up for me compared to the last retreat I went to in 2019. And then everything that opened up for me and why I think you also need to find a silent retreat ASAP. Okay. The retreat I went to back in 2019, I was in a place where I was starting to step into my business. In fact, one of the visions I had during the Sunday visioning of that retreat was building the business I now have. When I actually went, I was still doing a lot of contract work, which means I was getting hired by companies to come in and do consulting, contract work, and I was making a decent living. I had started to do a lot of ADHD coaching with a particular company and had taken a contract as their coaching director. So I was coaching other coaches, which is great. But my ancestors were talking to me mostly through meditation and telling me that I needed to shift into doing this work primarily with women of color, especially with fellow Latinas like me because of our experiences. Woo, that was powerful for me. That awakening was powerful for me. And that happened the Sunday of the last retreat that I went to. But one of the main differences I noticed with this retreat that I just went to and the last one I went to was that in 2019, it took me a couple of days to get into the stillness, to actually get into what I call feeling source. With this retreat recently, it took me a couple of hours. That's it. I could connect faster, quicker, or I could drop into it faster, quicker, which was surprising to me. So instead of it taking till Sunday to really feel the magic, by Saturday morning, I was just connected to source. Now, you might ask, what is source and why am I talking about it? Source is the energy behind you. It's the energy of the universe. It's the energy that is happening all the time. That is, as Reverend Michael calls it, omnipresent. When we think about being work, right? Hopefully you've learned be, do, have. You've learned what being work is. Being work is our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, especially about ourselves, our intentions, and our frequency of vibration. Behind all of that, at the core of all that, is who you're being, and who you're being is connected to source. So when you think about, what are the thoughts that I want to be thinking today? That version of you is actually source energy. For example, if you're in a feeling of feeling tired, but you want to feel energized and you decide, I'm feeling so tired, but okay, I'm going to do something to energize myself. The person who is witnessing the tiredness and is saying, I'm going to do something to get myself energized, that is the version of you that's connected to source. Some people call it your spirit. Some people call it your intuition. A lot of people call it the frequency of vibration. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter so much what you call it. What matters is your awareness of it and your connection to it. And part of how you connect to it is through stillness and silence. That's why it's so powerful. Why are we talking about source? Why is source even something I'm bringing up? Because if you connect to source, you will have energy. You will no longer be creating from this hustle mindset that we have where we got to work, 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 do. And we get stuck in that place. Sometimes for years, I've coached women that are in corporate jobs for 15 years. Like they turn around and they're like, whoa, next thing I know, I've been here for such a long period of time. The awareness of that, right? And the shifting to, okay, what's happening behind this job? Who am I really being? Who do I want to be? That connection to source and learning how to tap into that is what then energizes you. Because when we're connected to source, we feel freedom, we feel calm, we feel at peace. Some people experience a feeling of joy, a feeling of ease and flow. I've also had a couple of clients describe it as almost like an out of body experience where they're just focused on the present moment so much that they're just giving, for example, if they're coaches or they're trainers. Connecting to source is powerful. It's like a battery that's always on that we just have to plug into. And one of the ways to connect to source is being still or being in silence. So for me, I was surprised how quickly I could dip into it. Within a couple of hours, I was like, oh, yes, I can feel it and I want to stay here. And I did something that I don't normally do. There were about 40 people in the retreat, but we were told, right? There were certain rules or requests we were to follow. One of them was to not speak to each other, obviously. It's a silent retreat. So we had to sit in silence. We had to eat in silence. We had to go to our rooms in silence. If we bumped into each other in the hallway, there was silence, right? When we walked into the space where we were all together, there was silence. They called it the sanctuary. But normally I have an inclination to smile at people or to somehow connect to people. That's actually part of my process in the world, right? Is connecting, is building relationships. And I let that go. There was such freedom in being able to let go the heaviness I was holding on to about connecting with every single person that I saw, making eye contact or smiling. When I let that go, I just said, I'm just not going to make eye contact. I'm not going to smile. I'm just going to stay in my own experience. Woo. It literally felt like a weight was lifted off of me. The fact that I didn't have to acknowledge any other human being, which is difficult to do, right? But I didn't have to acknowledge anyone in the space. I could just stay in my experience that I was there to receive versus give, which in a lot of ways is what I do as a coach or what I do when I'm networking or when I'm out in the world. I'm giving to other people just through eyesight, through connection, through smiles. Sometimes I'll say hello. Letting go of all that. There was a freedom that opened up of not having to worry about anyone else, not having to worry about the people around me, also not having to worry about my family or friends, just completely disconnecting, right? Leaving my phone in the car and not worrying about social media or emails. I mean, I let everybody know in Inspired Action and in the mastermind that I was going to be away for a couple of days and my assistant, so that just in case something happened, there was an awareness around that. But being able to really let go, it was like dipping into a bathtub that is warm, that smells effervescent. And I love eucalyptus. So the smell of eucalyptus is what I picture. Putting my feet into this beautiful warm bath and then my whole body, and then being held by the water in the bath. That's what it felt like. It was such a magical, magical experience. So let me share with you what opened up for me, right? One of the things that opened up for me, as I just shared, was not needing to acknowledge anyone else in the space, not needing to say hello or notice or smile. Nothing. It was weird and amazing at the same time. Second thing that opened up is we were told to eat in silence, right? So here's what started to happen to me. I had 7 meals in silence, right? Or 8 meals, whatever it was, because there was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When I was eating, the awareness around what I was eating, so much mindfulness opened up for me. One, I only served myself what I was really going to eat. So I was more connected to my body and more aware of what I was putting in my body than I am normally. Normally, I'm just like rushing around trying to eat whatever, but I'm not very mindful of how hungry am I? What am I really going to eat? What do I really want to eat? What's going to nurture my body? So I was much more aware of that, which is amazing. Second awareness was all the hands that had something to do with getting this food to me, to this table, to my plate. I just had this feeling come over me of the soil that the vegetables grew in, the people who picked the vegetables, which oftentimes are people of color, the person who put the vegetables on the truck, and then the person who drove the truck to the place, and the person who cooked the vegetables, and then the person who put the vegetables out for us to get, like all the people that it took for me to get this one piece of carrot, for example. Wow. The amount of things that had to happen in order for this carrot to end up in front of me on my plate. I hadn't thought about that in years. I hadn't thought about the real mindfulness of the amount of work it takes, the amount of people that have had a say in how something ends up on your plate, ends up right in front of you. That was a beautiful awakening breakthrough moment for me in the process of eating. And then lastly, this mindfulness with eating also created better digestion. I could literally feel my body digesting the food in a way that was more nutritional for my body. I don't know how to describe that exactly, except to say that it was a feeling in my body and I felt more energy come from the food. I didn't drink any caffeine, which is not normal for me because normally I have a cup of coffee in the morning. Didn't feel like having that cup of coffee. I just had tea and this beautiful lemon ginger tea that they had. That moment of just drinking the tea, the gratitude that opened up for me in that moment, which I'm sure is part of why the digestion was better, right? This mindfulness around eating that I don't normally have because I'm normally eating on the go. Even when I'm having dinner with the kids and the family and we're all, sitting around my island in the kitchen, I'm still in my head about like asking the kids about their day and what happened with this and how did Luca do with his math test and what happened with Leia and whatever was happening at school. So I get caught up even in those moments and I notice the difference of how when I'm really mindful, it's a feeling of like dropping into my heart and then just being. Less thinking, just being. So let me tell you the second thing that opened up that was really powerful. Noticing things that I had not noticed, that I'm sure were in front of me the whole time. This is a magical part of being mindful. One of the things that took me almost a day to notice is there were these stairs that I would take every day to go up to my room. My room was on the second floor. So when I arrived, I brought my luggage up to second floor. And then there was a lot of going up and down that second floor because I had to come down to the first floor to go to the main hall we were in. So I was up and down those stairs at least 5 times. By the 6th time, I noticed that there were vines growing from plants next to the stairs. I hadn't noticed it this whole time. I mean, I literally stopped in the stairs and said, wait a minute, have these vines always been here? Yes, of course they had always been there. I mean, they've been growing for months. It didn't look like they had just been planted there. They'd been growing for months and I hadn't noticed because I was running up and down the stairs. The things we don't notice in our regular life. So much started opening up to me. I realized there are things I don't notice around my house. There are things I don't notice in a walkway that I pass by every single day. There was another moment where I was outside and I had noticed a small orange tree. And I was like, oh, that's a beautiful orange tree. The next day, Sunday, I noticed there were 8 orange trees, but I hadn't seen the others. I had only seen the one tree. Why? Mindfulness. I wasn't awake enough to see all the trees until Sunday. Sunday, I was like, whoa, there's been 8 trees. Again, I had the thought of, have they always been here and I just didn't see them? That's weird. But yes, they had always been there and I had just not seen them. The lesson is, what are you not seeing in your life that has been there this whole time? That is probably there right now. What are you missing? And these are physical things that are in front of us, but we miss because we're asleep, meaning we're just in the doing of life. We're like on autopilot, right? We're in default setting where we're just go, what's the next thing? Go, what's the next thing? Versus taking a deep breath, having some space where you can really take in what is around you. So powerful. The things we're missing and the things we're not noticing that are beautiful all around us, that the universe is offering us, that nature is offering us, right? Mindfulness. Okay. Third thing that opened up, and this is really powerful. Clarity. When you are in stillness and you start to connect to that beautiful space, the openness of what is available to you with source, what is available to you underneath that voice in your head that keeps going and going and going. What opens up for you is what is really important to you, what you really want to focus your energy on. And this feeling of deep connection, like plugging in to something, plugging into a battery that is always available to you. But that lies in the stillness, right? You've got to go deeper and then deeper and then deeper. And then you find this energy source, kind of like bumping into the sun. And you find this energy source that's just always there. When you find it and you dip your foot in it, things get really clear. You become really clear about who you are, what you want to do with your precious life, how lucky we all are, the abundance available to you, and how we spend so much time in this mind drama that isn't real, isn't true. Once you connect to the stillness, you remember, oh yeah, I can create from this place anything I want. So the stress, the overwhelm, the guilt, the doubt, all of those feelings start to melt away in the stillness. Whew, so much clarity. So on day 3, by the end of day 3, they allowed people to share in the room what their experience was. And they allowed us to go back and get our phone. It wasn't really allowed. We were allowed to do whatever we want. We're adults, right? But we were requested to not get our phone until the end of day 3. So at the end of day 3, they allowed people to share, and some people shared some powerful openings for them, some powerful breakthroughs for them. And one of the things that I noticed were 3 or 4 gentlemen who were all CEOs of large companies. I mean, they just shared that they had been successful in managing large companies, but had not felt real connection to themselves because they had to be on all the time, right? The leaders who are listening to this, yes, you as a leader in your company, in your organization, in your business, in your family, you probably feel the same. As leaders, we take on responsibility. Oftentimes, we take on responsibility for holding the space for so many people, for managing so many people, for managing ourselves enough that we have to hold the space. And what they shared, a couple of them shared that what opened up for them was the ability to let go of that responsibility, let go of holding that huge, let's say, bowl that they were holding, and just allow themselves to be. One in particular shared that what opened up for him was a lot of creativity, all this creativity that started to flow. So powerful. I also did a lot of journaling, a lot of clarity came. I read my journals for this last year. I usually keep a journal, and I keep a coaching journal that I have with my coach. When I get assignments and all that, I keep a particular journal. And I read through all those journals, which was so powerful because I was able to summarize them, able to get clear on what it is I really want to do, right? There's the clarity. But more than the clarity, what was powerful for me was the feeling of I'm not alone. There is this energy called source that I can tap into whenever I need it. In fact, it's all around me all the time. So this isn't just about me pushing through or figuring out how to make something happen or create something. I have a resource that I can dip into whenever I need. Do you know how good that feels? That's what I want for you. I want you to be able to connect to that stillness. I call it source. Connect to that source and plug in whenever you need to so that you can resource yourself, so that you can go out into the world and do the work that you really want to do. So, why do you need to be still? Why is silence and stillness necessary for you? It is necessary for you and necessary for all of us because of balance, balancing out the doing, creating, having with stillness, being, and releasing. The importance of balancing those two out. Imagine if what you really needed was the same amount of stillness as you have activity. So most of us are working, right, the traditional 8-hour day or whatever it is. Imagine having 8 hours of stillness. And I don't mean sleeping. That's also a category that's necessary. But I mean being present fully in the moment, but being still, mindful stillness. And it can happen in little increments. Imagine needing 8 hours to balance out the 8 hours that you worked. Woo! That kind of freaked me out when I first thought of it because I was like, there's no way I'm going to get that much meditation done in a day. And I don't mean meditation because you don't necessarily have to meditate. You can just be in the flow and have these moments of awareness, right? Moments of mindfulness. You can have a moment where you are, walking to pick your kids up and just be really mindful of the nature that is around you or the wind blowing your hair. Just little moments like that. I have little moments in the car usually where I turn off all the music and then I just sit in the stillness. Oh, it feels so good to just be in silence because there's so much noise all around us all the time. This is why you need stillness also. You need to be in silence also to balance out the amount of noise that is around you all the time, to bring you back to center, to remind you that you're also not alone, that you can tap into this resource called source whenever you need it. Your human brain is going to tell you that there's no way you could be in silence for 3 days or you don't have the time. There's no way like your family would survive without you or the business would survive without you or work, whatever it is. You don't necessarily have to go on a silent retreat, although I highly recommend that. And I recommend a couple of people. So you can always DM me if you want information, because there's a couple of different retreats I would highly recommend. But if you don't have the capacity right now to understand the importance of being in silence like that, then take moments throughout the day, or take one day, half a day even, or an hour to do nothing, to be still, just to be still. A parenting coach that I was once working with shared that there's tremendous value in having kids lie down on the floor and you lie down with them for a minute and do nothing. Not sleeping, but like in the middle of the day, just lie down together on like the carpet in your living room and be still, do nothing. The tremendous amount of value that comes from that is huge. It's really, really huge, because the stillness opens up. It opens up clarity. It opens up creativity. It helps you make decisions. It also brings you back to center. That's what you're really craving, is being in center, because center means you are back to who you really are: calm, peace, feeling confident in your ability, trusting in yourself, and also trusting that you're not alone. That is my message to you today. This is why you need to be still. Please try it. Try it for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, if that's all you have. 2 minutes of stillness, of doing nothing, just being still, being with yourself. You can manage your breath if you'd like, breathing in and breathing out, just listening to your breath. That's a way to bring in mindfulness or bring in calmness. Also, I suggest drinking tea or coffee and just being mindful drinking that, taking in every sip, being really aware and present in the moment. That's enough to start dipping into the value of the stillness. We are way too much in the doingness in life. In fact, that's why we're all overwhelmed. That's why we feel tired or stressed. Way too much doing. Less doing, more being. Less doing, more being. Say it with me now. Less doing, more being. Just being still. That is where the answers lie. All right. Can't wait to see you guys on the next episode of Yes Mujer Build It. I know you're listening to this towards the end of the year, so I'm going to be doing an amazing recap of 2024 podcast, and I can't wait to share it with all of you. So much love.